The vultures told Mark Harrison something was dying. They carved lazy circles against the bleached October sky, their shadows sliding across the golden grass like dark omen. Through his viewfinder, he counted 7, then 12, then too many to track. His Toyota Land Cruiser idled roughly, diesel fumes mixing with the dust that never quite settled in this part of the northern Serengeti. Mark lowered his camera at 48. His eyes weren't what they used to be, but they were still sharp enough to catch movement where there shouldn't be any. Under the lone acacia tree, something that looked like a termite mound or a pile of old rags shifted slightly. He grabbed his binoculars, adjusted the focus. The shape resolved into tawny fur, a hint of mane, a lion, male, young adult from the size. But something was wrong with its shape. Mark eased the Land Cruiser forward, tires crunching over sun-baked earth. The lion didn't move, didn't even lift its head at the sound of the approaching vehicle. That alone sent a chill down Mark's spine despite the 100-degree heat. In 3 years of filming in the Serengeti, he'd never seen a lion ignore a vehicle at close range, 20 meters away. He stopped, cut the engine. In the sudden silence, he could hear the vulture's wings rustling overhead, the distant laugh of a hyena, and something else labored breathing, wet and ragged. The lion was alive. Mark stepped out slowly, his boots hitting the ground with a soft thud. The air shimmered with heat waves, making everything look like a mirage. He kept one hand on the vehicle, ready to dive back in if needed, but the lion just lay there, its ribcage rising and falling in an irregular rhythm. Then he saw it. The black rubber tire wrapped around the lion's upper body, just behind the front legs, cutting deep into flesh that had tried to grow around it. The contrast was obscene industrial waste strangling wild beauty. The tire must have slipped over the lion's head when he was smaller, maybe investigating human garbage. And now his body had grown into and around it, the rubber becoming part of him like some nightmarish collar. "Jesus Christ!" Mark whispered. The lion's eye opened, golden, clouded with pain, but still conscious, still aware. It looked at Mark with neither fear nor aggression, just a profound exhaustion that seemed to ask a question Mark couldn't answer. He fumbled for his satellite phone, fingers shaking. The nearest veterinary unit was based in Serenera, at least 2 hours away if they drove flat out. His throat felt like sandpaper as he waited for the connection. "Serengeti Wildlife Veterinary Unit," came the crisp British accent. "This is Mark Harrison, documentary filmmaker. License number." He rattled off his credentials. "I've got a critical situation. Adult male lion, approximately 3 years old, trapped in a tire. GPS coordinates." "Slow down, Mr. Harrison. Did you say trapped in a tire? Around his chest? It's embedded. He's dying." A pause. "How long would you estimate he's been trapped?" Mark studied the wound, the way the flesh had grown over parts of the rubber, the scarring patterns. His stomach turned. "Months? Maybe 6 months or more? We're dispatching Der Mitchell's team immediately. Can you stay with the animal?" "Yes, but—" Mark glanced at the sun, already past its zenith. "It'll be dark in 4 hours. There are hyenas. Do what you can. We're coming." Mark ended the call and looked back at the lion. Flies clustered around the infected flesh where the tire had worn through fur and skin. The smell hit him, then rot and infection. Sweet and terrible. He'd smelled something similar once before, in a hospital in Cheyenne, when they'd finally let him see Tommy after the recovery team brought him down from Denali. No, not now. He pushed the memory down and focused on the immediate problem. The lion needed water. Mark retrieved a jerry can from the Land Cruiser, poured some into a camping bowl. The lion's nostrils flared at the scent, but he couldn't lift his head. Mark inched closer. 3 meters, 2. Close enough to see the maggots writhing in the deepest wounds. Close enough to count the lion's labored breaths. 24 per minute, too fast. His medical training from his army days, decades old but never forgotten, kicked in. Rapid breathing meant fever or pain or both. The lion made a sound not quite a growlish, more like a sigh. His tongue, swollen and cracked, protruded slightly between his teeth. Mark made a decision that would have horrified any wildlife expert. He moved the water bowl closer, within the lion's reach. For a moment, nothing. Then, with enormous effort, the lion stretched his neck forward and lapped weakly at the water. 3 licks, 4, then his head dropped back to the dirt. The vultures descended lower, landing in nearby trees, waiting. They knew death's schedule better than any doctor. Mark returned to his vehicle and did a quick inventory. Camera batteries, 6 hours of charge left, fuel, half a tank, flare gun, 3 flares, first aid kit, useless for this scale of trauma, food and water enough for 2 days if rationed. He set up his camera on the tripod, started recording. If nothing else, this death would be documented. Someone would know this lion had existed, had suffered, had fought to the very end. Day 1, October 15th, he said into the microphone. Northern Serengeti, Sector 7, adult male lion, severe entrapment injury, awaiting veterinary assistance. His professional voice, steady and clinical. The same voice he'd used to call the mountain rescue team 3 years ago. My son fell, north face. He's not responding. The sun crept lower. Shadows grew longer. In the distance, shapes moved through the grass. Hyenas. They'd smelled the dying lion, were likely already planning their approach. Mark had seen them take down injured prey before. They didn't wait for death. They started eating while their victim was still alive. He moved the land cruiser closer to the lion, positioning it as a barrier. The lion didn't react. His breathing had grown shallower. "Stay with me," Mark found himself saying. "Just a few more hours?" The lion's eye opened again, fixed on something beyond Mark. Following his gaze, Mark turned and froze. 50 meters away, partially hidden in the tall grass, another lion watched them. A female, older, her muzzle scarred, her body lean from hard living. She made no move to approach, but she didn't leave either. Mark raised his binoculars. The lioness was injured too, a pronounced limp in her rear leg, old wounds across her flank. But it was her eyes that struck him. They held the same exhausted determination as the dying male's. She'd been watching over him. The realization hit Mark like a physical blow. This lioness, despite her own injuries, had stayed near this dying male. In a world where weakness meant death, where the pride abandoned the injured, she had remained. His satellite phone crackled. "Mr. Harrison, this is Dr. Sarah Mitchell. We're 90 minutes out. What's the patient's current status?" Mark looked at the lion, at the waiting vultures, at the approaching hyenas, at the lioness maintaining her vigil. "He's alive," he said, "and he's not alone." Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. The hyenas moved closer. Mark counted 8 distinct shapes weaving through the amber grass. The lead female, bigger than the others, ears torn from old battles, kept her head low, watching, testing. They'd wait until full dark. They always did. Mark pulled the jerry can from the truck bed. 20 liters of diesel left in the reserve tank. He unscrewed the cap, the fumes sharp in his nostrils, poured a line of fuel in the dirt 10 feet out from where the lion lay. Not to light, not yet, just to have it ready. The lion's breathing changed. Shallow pants became deeper gasps. His eye rolled back, showing white. Mark dropped to his knees beside the massive head. The mane, once thick, hung in matted clumps. Up close, the skull felt too prominent under the skin. "Not yet," Mark said. His hand hovered over the lion's shoulder, not quite touching. Heat radiated from the fevered body. The tire had worn a groove so deep Mark could see pale bone through the infected flesh. Industrial steel belts, exposed where the rubber had split, cut into muscle with every breath. The lion had been dying by millimeters for months. Mark's phone buzzed. Sarah Mitchell. "Traffic on the main road. Overturned supply truck. We're detouring through Kogatende." "How long?" "2 hours. Maybe more." Mark looked west. The sun touched the horizon, painting everything gold and red. 20 minutes of light left. Maybe 30. "There are hyenas," he said. "Can you keep them back?" "I've got 3 flares and half a tank of diesel." Pause. "Do what you can." The lioness had crept closer, 40 meters now. Her limp was worse than he'd first thought. Her right rear leg barely touched ground. Old snare damage? Probably. She lowered herself into the grass, only her eyes and ear tips visible. Mark stood, walked to the Land Cruiser. His headlamp was in the glove box. Spare batteries in the camera bag. He'd need both hands free if the hyenas rushed. The flare gun went into his belt. Movement in his peripheral vision. The lead hyena had halved the distance. Bold. Too bold. Mark grabbed a wrench from the toolkit, banged it against the Land Cruiser's hood. The metallic clang echoed across the plain. The hyena stopped, but didn't retreat. Then Mark saw what the hyena had already noticed. The lion had stopped breathing. Mark's hand shot to the lion's chest. Nothing. He pressed harder, fingers searching through the matted mane for any movement. The massive ribcage was still. The lead hyena took 3 quick steps forward. Mark grabbed the flare gun from his belt, fired into the air. The red star arced overhead, hissing. The hyenas scattered back 20 yards, but immediately began circling again, their paths tightening like a noose. He dropped beside the lion's head, tilted it back. The tongue, swollen and purple, blocked the airway. Mark pulled it forward, clearing the passage. The inside of the mouth felt like heated leather, cracked and dry. Chest compressions were impossible. The tire blocked access to the thorax. Mark placed both hands on the lion's abdomen, just below where the tire cut in, and pushed upward. Once, twice. The flesh under his palms was burning hot, tight with infection. A wet gasp. The lion's chest expanded, barely, but it expanded. Mark kept pushing. Sweat ran into his eyes, salt stinging. His shoulders burned. Push, release, push, release. The lion's eye flickered open, pupil contracting in the dying light. The lioness stood up in the grass. Mark saw her muscles bunch. Thought she might charge him. Instead, she released a low, guttural call, not quite a roar, more like a moan that carried across the darkening plain. The lion's breathing resumed, ragged, painful, but there. Mark's legs shook as he stood. His hands were slick with pus and blood from where they'd pressed against the infected wounds. He wiped them on his pants, grabbed the jerry can. The hyenas had formed a half circle, maybe 15 yards out. Their eyes caught the last rays of sun, glowing green. The lead female's lips pulled back, showing teeth designed to crush bone. Mark splashed diesel in a wide arc, the liquid dark against the pale dirt. The fumes made his eyes water. He'd have to light it soon. Once full dark hit, the hyenas would rush regardless of fire. His headlamp clicked on, cutting a white beam through the gathering shadows. In the light, he saw what he'd missed before: tracks in the dust around the lion, lioness tracks, circling, days old, weeks old, some fresher. She'd been here repeatedly. The lion tried to lift his head, failed. His eye fixed on the lioness, and something passed between them that Mark couldn't name. Recognition, resignation. The lioness took a step closer, stopped, another step. The hyenas shifted nervously. Mark heard engines, still distant but unmistakable. He grabbed another flare, shot it straight up. The red light painted everything briefly crimson: the waiting scavengers, the dying lion, the watching lioness. The lead hyena darted forward. Mark grabbed the lighter from his pocket, touched flame to the diesel line. Blue fire raced along the fuel, sudden heat forcing him back. The hyena skidded to a stop, inches from the flames, but they wouldn't stay back long. Fire only worked until they got desperate enough or numerous enough to test it. Mark counted 12 hyenas now, more shapes moving in from the east. The lioness limped forward, passing through a gap in the fire line. She moved directly to the male lion, lowered her scarred muzzle to his face. Her tongue, pink and rough, cleaned the discharge from his eyes with careful strokes. The male made a sound deep in his throat, almost like purring, but broken. Mark stepped back, giving them space. His heel hit something soft. Another lion! He spun, heart hammering. A young male, perhaps 2 years old, stood 3 feet away, thin rib showing, a notch missing from his left ear. The adolescent's eyes weren't on Mark. They were locked on the dying lion. Then another shape materialized from the grass. Another young lion, female this time, smaller, her tail kinked at an odd angle. They'd all been waiting, watching, a coalition of the damaged, the expelled, the unwanted. The diesel fire began to sputter, gaps opening in the barrier. The hyenas pressed closer, emboldened. Mark had 1 flare left. After that, only the wrench and whatever diesel remained in the can. Headlights swept across the plain, still a mile out. The vehicles bounced over hidden rocks, light beams swinging wildly. But a mile might as well have been 100 with the fire dying and the hyenas gathering courage. The lead female hyena locked eyes with Mark. She knew he was almost out of options. Her powerful jaws opened slightly, strings of saliva catching the firelight. Behind him, the dying lion's breathing hitched, stopped, started again. The lioness continued her gentle grooming, as if she could clean away months of agony with her tongue. The 2 young lions flanked them, facing outward, guards with nothing left to guard with except presence. Mark's hand found the last flare. The vehicle's engines grew louder, but the hyenas grew bolder. The largest male, built like a pit bull crossed with a bear, stepped through a gap where the fire had died. The lioness raised her head from the dying male. Blood and pus matted the fur around her muzzle. She looked directly at the approaching hyena, pulled her lips back from her teeth, and released a roar that seemed impossible from her injured frame. The sound rolled across the Serengeti like thunder, deep, primal, carrying all the fury of a mother watching her child die. The hyena hesitated, but only for a second. The fire went out. The hyena lunged. Mark fired the last flare point blank. Red sparks exploded into the animal's face, singing whiskers, filling the air with the stench of burned hair. The hyena screamed high, almost human, and rolled backward. Twin headlight beams swept across them. A Toyota Land Cruiser slammed to a stop, followed by a modified veterinary truck. Doors flew open. "Move!" Dr. Sarah Mitchell's voice cut through the chaos. She carried a rifle tranquilizer, not bullets. The dart caught the closest hyena in the haunch. It took 3 steps and collapsed. Her assistant, a young Kenyan named James, fired a second dart, then a third. The remaining hyenas retreated, but not far. They knew the drugs would wear off. They'd wait. Sarah dropped beside the dying lion, her hands already moving across his body. Latex gloves snapped on, penlight between her teeth. Her fingers probed the edges where tire met flesh. "Jesus!" she breathed. the word fogged in the cooling night air. "How long did you say?" "6 months, maybe more." She peeled back a section of infected skin with forceps. White larvae spilled out, writhing in the headlamp beam. "Maggots are the only reason he hasn't died from sepsis." Her fingers found his pulse at the femoral artery. "Weak, rapid, maybe 180. James unloaded equipment, IV bags, surgical tools, a portable oxygen tank. The metallic clatter seemed obscene against the wild sounds of the night-distant roars, the whooping of hyenas, the wind through dry grass. Sarah inserted an IV needle into the lion's foreleg. The vein rolled under the skin, collapsed. She tried again. The third attempt held. "Saline first," she said to James. "Wide open." Mark watched the clear fluid drip into the lion's body. Too slow. Everything too slow. The lioness hadn't moved. She sat 5 feet away, her damaged leg tucked under her body, watching every motion with yellow eyes that caught the headlamp's glare. "There are others," Mark said. "2 young lions." Sarah looked up, noticed the adolescents for the first time. They'd pressed themselves flat in the grass, only their eyes visible. "Pride members." "I don't think so. They're all injured. That one's missing part of an ear. The female's tail is broken." Sarah's hands kept working as she spoke. "Outcasts. The damaged ones find each other sometimes." She pulled a syringe from her kit, drew medication from a vial. "Antibiotics. Probably useless at this stage." But the lion convulsed. His whole body went rigid, head thrown back, jaws locked open, the IV line pulled taut. Sarah grabbed his head, forced it down. "He's seizing? James, diazepam, now." James scrambled for the medication. The lion's legs paddled against nothing. Claws extending and retracting, foam pink with blood, bubbled from his mouth. Sarah got the diazepam into the IV port, pushed it slow, counting under her breath. The seizure lasted 40 seconds that felt like hours. Then the lion went limp. "Is he?" Mark started. "Alive." "Barely." Sarah sat back on her heels. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the dropping temperature. "Mark, I need you to understand something. This level of infection, the tissue damage, the strain on his organs, even if we remove the tire, he'll probably die, and it won't be peaceful. But you'll try." She studied him, really looked at him for the first time, saw something in his face that made her expression soften. "You've lost someone." Not a question. Mark nodded once. "Recently, 3 years, my son." And Sarah turned back to the lion, ran her hand along the trapped chest, feeling the distortion of ribs bent by months of constriction. Sometimes the kindest thing is letting them go. No more pain, just sleep. "He's not ready to die." "How could you possibly know that?" Mark pointed to the lioness. "Because she's not ready to let him." Sarah followed his gesture. The lioness had moved closer during the seizure. Her muzzle almost touched the male's. She breathed on his face, steady exhales that stirred his whiskers. "That's anthropomorphizing," Sarah said. But her voice lacked conviction. James spoke up. "We've got 3 other calls waiting. Snared elephant near Lobo. Poisoned vultures at Barafu. We can't spend all night on one animal that probably won't survive anyway." Sarah pulled off her gloves. They snapped in the quiet. She looked at the lion, at Mark, at the waiting lioness. Her jaw worked like she was chewing words before speaking them. "The tire has grown into the muscle tissue. To remove it, I'll have to cut a lot. He could bleed out on the spot. The shock alone might kill him. And if he survives that, the infection could turn systemic within hours. He might die anyway, just in more pain than he's in now. But there's a chance, maybe 5%, maybe less." Mark met her eyes. "In Wyoming, they gave my son 0%, said No one could survive that fall, that cold, that long without oxygen. He swallowed. They were right. But I've spent 3 years wishing someone had tried anyway. Sarah pulled fresh gloves from her kit. James, set up the surgical lights. We're going to need blood. The lioness check her for compatibility. You want me to draw blood from a conscious wild lioness? She won't fight you. How do you know? Sarah looked at the lioness, still breathing on the dying male's face. Because she knows. We're his only chance. James approached with a syringe, moving like he was walking on glass. The lioness watched him come. Her lips twitched, showing teeth. But she didn't move, not even when the needle went in. Mark's satellite phone buzzed, text from his editor. Got your footage. This could be huge. Keep rolling. He deleted it without responding, picked up his camera from where he'd dropped it. The battery light blinked red, almost dead. Like everything else here, Sarah filled a syringe with the lioness's blood. Dark red, almost black in the artificial light. This is insane, she muttered. Field surgery. No proper equipment, transfusing wild lion blood. Will it work? She looked at him. Do you believe in miracles? No. Then you'd better start. Sarah's scalpel caught the surgical light. Hold him steady. Mark pressed down on the lion's shoulder. The hide felt like sun-dried leather stretched over rocks. Through his palms, he felt each labored heartbeat irregular, too fast, skipping beats. James, more light here. Sarah pointed to where the tire disappeared into swollen flesh. The LED array lit up the wound like a stage. Mark's stomach clenched. The rubber had fused with the tissue. Black industrial polymer married to living meat. Pus leaked from a dozen infected tracks. The smell, sweet rot mixed with rubber, coated the back of his throat. Sarah made the first incision. Blood welled up, darker than it should be. She suctioned it away with the turkey baster, the best they had. The cut revealed layers, dead gray tissue, yellow fat, glimpses of white that might have been bone or tendon. The steel belts, she said. They've cut through the latissimus dorsi. Mark held the light steady. His hands wanted to shake. He locked his elbows, breathed through his mouth. The lioness watched from 2 meters away. She'd dragged herself closer during the prep, her injured leg leaving a furrow in the dirt. Sarah cut deeper. Each slice made a specific sound, the whisper of sharp metal through meat. Blood ran down the lion's side, pooling in the dust, turning it to dark mud. James suctioned, packed gauze, suctioned again. There. Sarah pointed with the forceps. See where the wires wrapped around the intercostal muscle? Mark saw. Steel cable, designed to strengthen tires, had become a garrote. With every breath the lion had taken for months, the wire had cut deeper. No wonder his breathing was so labored. Sarah reached for wire cutters. If I nick an artery, you won't. She looked at him and across at the lion's body. You don't know that? Cut. The wire snapped with a sound like breaking guitar strings. Blood spurted bright red, arterial. Sarah's hands moved fast, clamping, pressing, searching for the bleeder. Found it, clamped it. The blood slowed to an ooze. Mark's phone vibrated. He ignored it, then vibrated again and again. Answer it, Sarah said without looking up. Could be important. Mark pulled the phone out one-handed, keeping the light steady with the other. Unknown number. He almost declined, then saw it was a local Tanzanian number. Hello. Mr. Harrison, this is Benjamin Sankara. I am nearby with my grandfather, though he says he knows this lion. Mark looked at the destroyed animal under Sarah's knife. How could anyone recognize him like this? Not him. The female. My grandfather calls her Mama Damu, the blood mother. As Sarah kept cutting, the tire was coming free in sections, each piece pulling away with strands of tissue clinging to it like roots being torn from soil. "We're coming," Benjamin said. "My grandfather insists. He says she needs to know someone remembers." The lion went dead. Sarah had exposed more of the tire now. The full horror became clear. What looked like a single tire was actually a smaller tire inside a larger one. The lion having grown through both as his body expanded. "Christ," James whispered. "How did he even breathe?" The lion's breathing changed, deeper suddenly, as each cut freed more of his compressed chest. His eye opened, pupil dilating despite the sedation. Sarah injected more ketamine directly into the IV. "His pressure's dropping," James said, fingers on the femoral pulse. 60/40. Transfuse the lioness's blood. Now." James connected the blood bag to the second IV port. Dark blood flowed into the dying lion. The lioness made a sound soft, almost inaudible. Her eyes never left the male's face. Mark's hand cramped from holding the light. He shifted his grip. In that moment, a memory surfaced unbidden, holding a flashlight while his father worked under the hood of their old Ford. Wyoming winter wind cutting through the garage. "Steady. Steady, son. Steady hands save lives." His father's voice, 20 years gone. Sarah peeled back another section of tire. Maggots poured out, hundreds of them, white and writhing. She didn't flinch. "Leave them," she said to James, who'd reached for the irrigation syringe. "They've been eating the dead tissue. Probably the only reason gangrene hasn't set in." The tire came away in larger pieces now. Each removal revealed more damage. Ribs bent at wrong angles, muscle torn and rehealed incorrectly. Scar tissue, like white rope binding everything in ways that shouldn't exist. An engine sound. Headlights? A beaten Land Rover pulled up, its approach barely audible over the generator powering the surgical lights. 2 men got out, one young, tall, wearing a Cleveland Cavaliers t-shirt. The other, ancient, bent, leaning on a walking stick carved from acacia wood. Benjamin Sankara looked exactly like his voice, serious, concerned, competent. His grandfather moved with the careful precision of age, each step deliberate. The old man's eyes, clouded with cataracts, found the lioness immediately. He spoke in Ma, his voice like wind through dry leaves. Benjamin translated, "He says he knew her mother, and her mother's mother. This line of lions has hunted near our village for 5 generations." Sarah didn't look up from her work. "Tell him to stay back." "This is sterile." The old man laughed, a sound like rustling paper. More Ma. Benjamin translated, "He says nothing about death is sterile." The old man lowered himself to the ground, joints popping. He began to speak, a low chant or story. Benjamin translated in fragments. She lost her first litter to hyenas, second to drought. This one, her last son, she found abandoned. Not her blood, but became her blood. Sarah cut through the last section, holding the outer tire. It fell away with a wet sound. The lion's chest expanded fully for the first time. The shape was wrong, concave, where it should be convex, twisted from months of uneven pressure. "The inner tire's deeper," Sarah said, "embedded in the chest wall." Mark's light caught something, movement in the grass beyond the vehicles. "We've got company." More lions, 3 females, 2 young males, all bearing scars, limps, damaged ears or tails. They formed a loose circle, watching. "Jesus," James said. "It's like they all came to witness." Sarah's hands paused for just a moment. Then she continued, cutting. The inner tire was worse. It had been there longest, probably since the lion was a cub. The rubber had degraded, mixing with body fluids to create a black paste that had to be scraped away from living tissue. The lion convulsed. Not a seizure, a conscious movement. Despite the sedation, his head turned toward the lioness. She immediately pressed her forehead to his, breathing into his nostrils. His heart rate's spiking. James said, 190? 200. Sarah worked faster. Blood covered her arms to the elbows. The surgical site looked like a demolition zone, tissue pulled back, organs visible. The architecture of a body rebuilt wrong and being torn down to save it. The old man's chanting grew louder. Mark didn't need translation to understand it was a death song, or maybe a birth song. Maybe they were the same thing. Sarah reached the deepest part of the tire, where it had pressed against the lion's sternum for years. The bone was deformed, pushed inward. She had to cut it to remove the last piece of rubber. "Bone saw," she said. "We don't have one." She grabbed the wire cutters. "Then these will have to do." The sound of wire cutters on bone was specific and terrible, a grinding crunch that Mark felt in his teeth. The lion's whole body shuddered, more blood. So much blood the ground couldn't absorb it all. The last piece of tire came free. For a moment, nobody moved. The lion's chest, freed from its prison, didn't seem to know what to do. Then slowly, it expanded. A full breath, then another. Sarah began suturing. Fast, efficient. Closing the worst bleeders first, the surgical site was too large to close completely. She packed it with gauze, wrapped it with vet wrap, created pressure with torn strips of James's shirt. "That's all I can do," she said. The lion's breathing had changed, still labored, but deeper, fuller. His eye was closed, but tears leaked from the corner, probably just a physical response to pain. But Mark wondered. The lioness stood, favoring her bad leg. She moved to the lion's head. Her tongue, rough and careful, began cleaning his face. The old man stopped chanting. In the sudden quiet, Mark heard his phone buzz again, a voicemail, from a Wyoming number he didn't recognize. He almost ignored it, then saw the area code, Jackson Hole, where Tommy had started his final climb. His finger hovered over the play button. 3 years, and he'd never been able to listen to Tommy's last message. The one that came while Mark was in a meeting, ignored because quarterly reports seemed important then. By the time he'd thought to call back, Tommy was already on the mountain, already climbing toward his death. Sarah peeled off her gloves. "Now we wait." The lioness continued her grooming, methodical, patient, as if she could clean away months of agony with persistence alone. The other lions maintained their circle, witnesses to something that shouldn't be servitable. Mark looked at his phone. The voicemail icon blinked. He pressed play. "Mr. Harrison, this is Dr. Patricia Webb from Jackson Memorial. I'm calling about a recording we found. Your son, Tommy. He had his phone recording when..." The message cut off. Mark's finger hit callback before he could think. The phone rang once, twice. "Jackson Memorial, Records Department. This is Mark Harrison. You called about my son, Tommy Harrison. He died 3 years ago on Denali." "Mr. Harrison, yes, I'm Dar Webb. I apologize for the late hour there. We were digitizing old emergency recordings and found something. Your son's phone was recording when the rescue team found him." Mark's knees went weak. He sat hard on the Land Cruiser's bumper. "He was dead when they found him." "Yes, but the phone..." "It recorded for 12 hours after he fell. The battery lasted until..." "Mr. Harrison, would you like us to send you the file?" The lion jerked. Not a breath, a spasm, then nothing. "He's not breathing," Sarah said. Mark dropped the phone. Sarah already had her hands on the lion's chest. Compressions through the bandages. Blood seeped through the white gauze, spreading like spilled wine. "James, bag him!" James fitted the resuscitation mask over the lion's muzzle, a ridiculous sight. that would have been funny if not for the lion's absolute stillness. He squeezed the bag once, twice. The lion's chest rose and fell with mechanical precision. The lioness rose to her feet. She released a sound that wasn't quite a roar lower, more guttural, the kind of sound that bypassed the ears and went straight to the spine. "Keep bagging," Sarah ordered. She drew up epinephrine, slammed it directly into the lion's heart. The needle went deep, through fur and muscle and between ribs. Nothing. Mark picked up his phone from the dirt. Dark Webb was still talking. The recording is mostly wind, but there are moments where he speaks. He knew the phone was recording. He wanted to leave something. "Send it," Mark said, and hung up. Sarah drew up another dose of epinephrine. Her hands shook slightly, fatigue, not fear. She'd been cutting for over an hour. "This is the last amp I have." The injection went in. James kept bagging. The lioness moved closer, her muzzle inches from the lion's face. She exhaled hard into his nostrils. Once, twice, 3 times, like she was trying to breathe for him. Movement in Mark's peripheral vision. The hyenas were back. They'd stayed beyond the light's reach. But now they pressed closer. The tranquilized ones had recovered, rejoined the pack. 20 of them at least, maybe more. "Start the vehicles," Sarah said. "We might need to move him." Mark turned the Land Cruiser's key. The engine coughed, turned over, died. He tried again. Nothing. The battery gauge read empty. The surgical lights had drained it. James tried the veterinary truck. It started, but barely. The engine knocked badly, missing cylinders. The lioness stood over the male's body, straddling him. She faced the hyenas, lips pulled back, showing broken teeth and bleeding gums. Her injured leg trembled with the effort of holding her weight. One hyena rushed in from the left. The lioness spun, caught it across the face with her claws. Blood sprayed black in the headlight beams. The hyena retreated, but only a few yards. Sarah continued compressions. Sweat ran down her face, dripped onto the lion's chest. "Come on, come on." The old man, Benjamin's grandfather, began chanting again. Different words this time. Benjamin didn't translate, but Mark heard something in the rhythm. Not death, but summoning. Calling something back. A second hyena attacked from the right. The lioness couldn't spin fast enough on her bad leg. Its teeth found her flank, tore through hide. She roared pain and rage mixed and rolled, crushing the hyena beneath her weight. It let go, scrambled away. Blood ran from the new wound, adding to the collection of injuries that mapped her body like a history of violence. Survived. "He's been down 6 minutes," James said. Sarah didn't stop compressions. "I know." "Brain death starts at 4 minutes without oxygen." "I know." The circle of damaged lions that had been watching began to move, not away inward. The 2 young lions Mark had seen earlier positioned themselves beside the lioness. They were pitifully small against the hyena pack, but they stood firm. Mark's phone buzzed. The audio file had arrived. 12 hours of recording compressed into a 2 GB file. His thumb hovered over it. The hyenas attacked in force. 3 came at once from different angles. The lioness caught one, her jaws crushing its shoulder. It screamed that horrible hyena laugh turned to agony. The young male lion grabbed another, but his lack of experience showed. The hyena twisted free, teeth finding the lion's throat. Not deep enough to kill, but blood flowed. Sarah never stopped compressions. Her arms shook with exhaustion. "James, take over." They switched position smoothly. James's younger, stronger arms continued the rhythm. Sarah prepared another injection, not epinephrine this time. Something else from her kit. "What is that?" "Naloxone. Sometimes the sedation is too deep. Sometimes." She didn't finish. The injection went in. They waited. James continued compressions. The hyenas continued attacking. The lioness was being overwhelmed, despite the other lion's help. She bled from a dozen new wounds. Mark grabbed the flare gun, no flares left. But the hyenas didn't know that. He pointed it at the nearest attacker, pulled the trigger. Click! The hyena didn't even flinch. The lioness went down. Her bad leg finally gave out, and she collapsed beside the male lion. A hyena lunged for her throat. Mark grabbed the tire iron from the truck bed, swung it like a baseball bat. The impact jarred his arms to the shoulders. The hyena tumbled away, got up, came back. 7 minutes, James said. Sarah grabbed the defibrillator from the truck. This isn't designed for lions. Do it anyway. She placed the paddles on either side of the lion's chest over the heart. Clear? The shock arced through the lion's body. His muscles contracted violently, then nothing. Again! Charge! Clear! Shock! Nothing! The lioness dragged herself back to the male's head. Blood pooled beneath her, black in the dust. She was dying. Mark could see it in the way her breathing labored, the way her eyes began to lose focus. But she pressed her nose to his, breathed into him one more time. 8 minutes, James said. Sarah charged the defibrillator again, maximum voltage. This is the last. The lion gasped. Not dead, not alive, suspended between. His chest rose barely, impossibly, fell, rose again. He's breathing, James said. Pulse is... There's a pulse. Weak, but the hyenas stopped attacking. They didn't retreat, but they paused, confused. Waiting prey didn't usually come back from the dead. Sarah scrambled for supplies. IV wide open, all the fluids we have. James, keep bagging him. Just assisted breaths now. The lioness collapsed fully. Her head landed on the male's neck, and she didn't move again. Blood continued to leak from her wounds, but slower now. Her breathing was shallow, barely visible. Mark knelt beside her. Her eye found his golden, ancient, exhausted beyond measure. She blinked once. Slow, deliberate. The male lion's eye opened. Just a slit, but aware, he saw the lioness draped over him, bleeding out to keep him safe. His throat produced a sound, not a roar, barely a whisper, but she heard it. Her ear twitched. The old man stood, using his walking stick for support. He spoke in English for the first time. She is Mama Damu, the blood mother. She has given all her blood. The debt is paid. What debt? Mark asked. The debt of love. The debt that says I will die before I let you die alone. The lioness's breathing stopped. Mark put his hand on her scarred head. Her fur was rough, matted with blood both old and new. Through his palm, he felt her last heartbeat. Then nothing. The male lion's eye tracked the movement, watched Mark's hand on her still head. A sound came from deep in his chest, keening, mournful, barely audible, but absolutely clear in its meaning. The hyenas began to circle again. They smelled death, real death this time. Sarah looked at the supplies. We're out of everything. No more fluids, no more drugs. If he crashes again, he won't, Mark said. You can't know that. Mark's phone screen lit up. The audio file sat there, waiting. 12 hours of his dead son's voice, captured as he froze to death alone on a mountain. Mark understood now why he'd never been able to listen to Tommy's last voicemail, why he'd thrown himself into work, into documenting other lives rather than examining his own. The male lion tried to lift his head, failed, tried again. His nose touched the lioness's still face. We need to move them, Sarah said. Both of them. She's dead. He won't leave her. Look. The lion's claws had extended, hooking into the lioness's mane, holding her, even sedated, even dying. He held on. The hyenas laughed in the darkness, waiting. The lion's left legs didn't move. Sarah ran her forceps along the paw pad. Nothing. She pressed harder, metal against flesh. The right legs jerked back. The left stayed dead. Paralysis, she said. The pressure damaged the spinal nerves. Mark watched the lion try to turn toward the dead lioness. His right legs scrambled against the dirt, claws extending, finding no purchase. The left side of his body dragged like meat. His head managed to turn enough to see her still, eyes half open, blood already attracting flies. The sound he made wasn't a roar. Lower, broken, the noise of something that understood its situation completely. James stepped back from the surgical supplies. We should... Don't say it. Mark cut him off. He can't survive like this. No hunting, no defending himself, no... I said, don't. Sarah stood, peeling off her blood-soaked gloves. They made a wet slap against the Land Cruiser's hood. Mark, look at him. The lion was dragging himself toward the lioness, right legs pushing, left side scoring a groove in the dirt, 6 inches, a foot. His breathing came in gasps. The surgical site leaked fresh blood through the bandages. He's trying to reach her, Mark said. He's dying badly. Sarah's voice had gone clinical, detached. The paralysis is probably permanent. The infection will return without constant antibiotics we don't have. He'll starve if the hyenas don't get him first. You don't know it's permanent. Look at his eyes. Mark looked. The lion had stopped dragging himself, exhausted by moving 2 feet. His gaze fixed on the lioness's still form. The gold had gone dull, like brass left in rain. Sarah pulled a second syringe from her kit, different from the others, larger, filled with blue liquid. Pentobarbital. It's painless. He'll just sleep. No, this isn't your son, Mark. The words hit like a physical blow. Mark's vision tunneled. His hands clenched into fists. You think I don't know that? His voice cracked. You think I can't tell the difference between a lion and my child? Then why are you fighting so hard for an animal that wants to die? He doesn't want to die. Look at him. He's trying to get to her. The lion had started moving again, dragging, pulling. The bandages caught on a rock, started unraveling. Pink foam bubbled from beneath. That's not living, Sarah said. That's momentum, neural firing, instinct without purpose. You're wrong. Amos. Sarah moved closer to Mark, lowering her voice. Or are you keeping him alive for yourself because you couldn't save Tommy? Mark's fist moved before his brain registered the decision. It stopped an inch from Sarah's face. His whole arm shook. She didn't flinch. Go ahead, she said. Hit me. It won't change anything. Your son is still dead, and you're torturing this animal because you can't accept it. Mark's arm dropped. His legs gave out. He sat hard in the dirt, head in his hands. I wasn't there. Tommy called 6 times while he was on that mountain. 6 times. I was in meetings, editing footage. Stupid, meaningless work, and now I have 12 hours of him dying alone, and I can't even listen to it. Sarah knelt beside him. Mark, the rescue team said he lived for 10 hours after the fall. 10 hours, broken spine, couldn't move. Just like... He gestured at the lion. The hyenas had crept closer during the argument. One darted in, grabbed the dead lioness's leg in its jaws, started pulling her away from the male. The paralyzed lion went berserk. His right legs clawed at the ground, tearing grooves. His head thrashed. The sound from his throat was pure rage. But his left side remained dead weight. He managed to drag himself another foot before collapsing. Benjamin's grandfather spoke in Ma. Benjamin translated, he says the spirit is willing, but the flesh is broken. This is the cruelest death to die reaching for what you cannot touch. Sarah prepared the syringe. I'm going to end this. Wait. The voice came from James. He was staring at the lion's left rear leg. "Did you see that?" "See what?" "The paw. It moved." Sarah crouched, examined the leg, pressed the forceps against the pad again. The toes flexed, barely, but they flexed. "That's impossible. The paralysis was complete 5 minutes ago." She ran her hands along the lion's spine, feeling through the fur. I found something. "There's swelling here. Severe edema around L3 and L4. Meaning, the inflammation might be causing the paralysis, not permanent damage. If we can reduce the swelling..." "How long?" "Days, maybe weeks. And he'd need constant care, antibiotics, steroids." The hyenas pulled the lioness's body another yard away. The male lion watched, his eye tracking the movement. His left leg twitched again, stronger this time. Mark stood, walked to the dead lioness. The hyenas scattered back. He grabbed her front legs, started dragging her back toward the lion. She was heavier than he expected. Dead weight in the truest sense. Her head lolled, tongue hanging out. "What are you doing? He needs to reach her to say goodbye." "He's an animal. They don't..." "Yesterday you said they don't show loyalty either." "But she died protecting him." Mark pulled the lioness's body next to the male. The lion's right paw immediately reached out, claws hooking into her mane. He pulled himself against her, his face pressing into her neck. The sound he made was so quiet, Mark almost missed it a rumble, like a broken purr. Sarah still held the syringe. "This is prolonging suffering." "Who's his or mine?" She didn't answer. The first ranger truck arrived then. Lights flashing, 2 uniformed officers got out, rifles ready. Not tranquilizers, real bullets. "To Mitchell," the lead ranger said, "we've had reports of a situation. Multiple lions threatening humans." Sarah looked at the scene, the paralyzed lion clinging to his dead protector. The circle of damaged lions still watching, the hyenas waiting for their chance. "No threat," she said, "just animals being animals. Regulations state any lion that can't survive must be euthanized. He might recover. The paralysis might be temporary." The ranger looked at the dragging marks in the dirt, the blood trail, the lion's dead left side. "Might isn't enough. You know the rules." Mark stood between the ranger and the lion. "How long until you have to act?" "Sunrise. If he can't stand by sunrise, we end it." Mark looked at his watch. 2:47 a.m. 4 hours. The lion's left rear leg moved again. Not much, but it moved. Benjamin's grandfather moved toward the paralyzed lion with his walking stick tapping the ground. The rangers raised their rifles. "Let him through," Mark said. The old man knelt in the dirt, his knees popping like kindling. His cataract-clouded eyes studied the lion's left side. He pressed gnarled fingers along the spine, counting vertebrae through fur and muscle. The lion didn't react to the touch. The old man spoke in Ma, long sentences that sounded like water over stones. Benjamin translated in chunks. 42 years ago, young male, same injury, pressure on spine from python attack, could not move back legs for 13 days. Sarah stepped closer. What happened to him? More Ma. The swelling went down. He walked again, became leader of the Northern Pride. My grandfather says the body wants to heal. Sometimes we must give it time. That's anecdotal, not medical evidence. The old man laughed, pulled something from his leather pouch, tree bark, reddish-brown, crumbling at the edges. He spoke in English. Your medicine, my medicine, both same purpose. Sarah took the bark, examined it under her headlamp. Fever tree, Acacia xanthophylla, contains salicin, natural aspirin, James said. Anti-inflammatory. The old man ground the bark between 2 stones he'd brought, mixed it with water from Mark's canteen. The paste looked like dried blood in the artificial light. He moved to apply it to the lion's spine. "Wait," Sarah said. She pulled out her medical kit, found a vial, methylprednisolone, veterinary steroids. "If we're going to try to reduce inflammation, let's do it right." She drew up the dose, injected it directly into the tissue around the swelling. Then she nodded to the old man. "Your medicine, too? Can't hurt." The bark paste went on like war paint, dark stripes along the lion's paralyzed side. The smell was sharp, medicinal, older than pharmaceuticals. The lion's eye tracked their movements, but his body remained still except for the rise and fall of his chest. His right paw still gripped the dead lioness's mane. "We need to document this," Mark said. He set up his camera on the tripod, night vision engaged. Through the viewfinder, everything became green and ghostly. 3:15 a.m. 3 hours and 45 minutes until sunrise. Sarah checked the lion's reflexes every few minutes. Tap, nothing. Tap, nothing. Tap, the smallest flicker in the left front paw. "There," she said. Anterior response. Mark turned from the camera, meaning the signal is trying to get through. The swelling is blocking it, but not completely. The rangers had set up a perimeter, keeping the hyenas back with occasional warning shots. The sound made everyone flinch, except the old man, who continued applying bark paste with methodical patience. Benjamin's phone rang. He answered in Swahili, then English. "My cousin is coming with supplies from the village clinic, antibiotics, IV bags. He'll be here in an hour." "We can't pay for—" Sarah started. "I can," Mark interrupted. "Whatever it costs. Your documentary budget won't cover—" "Not the documentary budget. My savings? Tommy's college fund." He said it matter-of-factly. "He won't need it." 10:42 a.m. The lion's left rear leg twitched. Not just the paw, the whole leg. A spasm that ran from hip to ankle. Sarah measured the circumference of the swelling. It had reduced by 2 centimeters. "It's working, slowly, but it's working." The hyenas had given up on rushing, but maintained their circle. They knew patience better than any human. Mark counted 23 of them, their eyes like green coins in the night vision. The old man began chanting again. Benjamin didn't translate this time, but Mark recognized the rhythm, not a death song anymore. Something else. The cadence of waiting, of possibility. 4:08 a.m. The cousin arrived in a Toyota pickup that looked held together by wire and hope. He brought 2 boxes of medical supplies, expired by Western standards but still sealed. Sarah sorted through them with the efficiency of someone used to making do. "These antibiotics are 3 months past date. They'll be weaker, but should work." She set up a new IV line, started the antibiotics. The lion's eye followed her movements. When she got too close to the dead lioness, he growled, weak, barely audible, but definitely a warning. "He won't let us move her," James said. "Then we don't move her." Mark watched through his viewfinder as Sarah worked. The scene looked like battlefield medicine, blood-soaked ground, improvised treatments, death and life separated by millimeters. 4:31 a.m. The lion tried to stand. His right legs pushed, found purchase. His left legs responded, not dead weight anymore, but weak, uncoordinated. He made it halfway up before collapsing. His head hit the dirt hard. "Too soon," Sarah said. "He needs more time." But the lion tried again. Right leg stronger, left legs dragging but moving. He got his chest off the ground for 3 seconds before falling. The rangers checked their rifles. "Sunrise is at 6:31, the lead ranger said. "He needs to stand on his own by then." "Define stand," Mark said. "On all 4 legs, unassisted." for at least 30 seconds. The lion heard something in the ranger's tone. His eye found the rifle, tracked it. Some primitive part of his brain recognized the threat. He tried again to rise. This time, his left front leg responded properly. 3 legs working, one still mostly dead. He held the position for 10 seconds before his left rear leg buckled. 5:02 a.m. Mark's phone had been buzzing steadily. He finally checked it. 17 missed calls from his editor, 3 from his ex-wife, 1 voicemail from Darweb in Jackson. Mr. Harrison, I'm concerned you haven't acknowledged receiving the file. Please understand, listening to it should be done with support present. He deleted them all. The lion hadn't tried to stand again. Well, he lay beside the dead lioness, his breathing steady but his eye unfocused. The medication or exhaustion or grief, maybe all 3, had sent him somewhere internal. Sarah monitored his vitals. Heart rate dropping? That's good. Body's not in crisis mode anymore. But can he stand? I don't know. 5:27 a.m. The eastern horizon showed the faintest suggestion of light. Not sunrise yet, but its promise. The hyenas stirred, sensing the schedule. The rangers loaded fresh magazines. Benjamin's grandfather stopped applying bark paste. He sat back, studied his work. Spoken in English, the body heals, but the spirit must choose. Choose what? Mark asked. To fight or to follow? He gestured at the dead lioness. She was his reason. Without her, Mark understood. He'd felt it himself after Tommy. The gravitational pull of giving up, the exhaustion of continuing. He'd thrown himself into work, not from strength, but from fear of stopping. 5:44 a.m. The lion's left rear leg moved, not a twitch or spasm. Deliberate movement. He pulled it under his body, positioned it to bear weight. He's going to try again, Sarah said. The lion's muscles tensed. Right legs first, pushing. Left front leg next. Shaking, but supporting. Then the left rear, the weakest point, the one that had been completely paralyzed 2 hours ago. He stood, swaying like a drunk, legs trembling but standing, all 4 paws on the ground. His head turned toward the dead lioness, and he made that broken purring sound again. 10 seconds, 15, 20. His left rear leg buckled. He went down hard, dust billowing. That was 22 seconds, Mark said. Needs to be 30. The ranger replied, and sunrise is in 41 minutes. The lion lay flat, sides heaving, blood seeped through the bandages. His eye closed. He's done, Sarah said. He gave everything in that attempt. Mark knelt beside the lion's head. The massive skull felt fragile under his palm. Through his hand, he felt the lion's pulse rapid, irregular, weakening. Listen, Mark said, though he knew the lion couldn't understand. I know you want to follow her. I know continuing seems impossible. But she didn't die for you to give up. The lion's eye opened, fixed on Mark with something that might have been recognition or might have been the random firing of dying neurons. Ticked ear. A.M. The horizon glowed orange. Actual sunrise in 35 minutes. The lead ranger chambered around. The sound was distinct in the pre-dawn quiet mechanical. Final. The lion heard it too. His head lifted slightly, turned toward the sound, then toward the dead lioness, then toward something beyond Mark's shoulder. Mark turned. Walking across the plain, silhouetted against the brightening sky, came 3 lions. The 3 lions moved wrong. One dragged its right front leg. Another's spine curved sideways. An old injury healed crooked. The third, smallest, had a face half melted from fire or acid. The left eye sealed shut. They stopped 20 meters away. The one with the burnt face made a sound half growl, half question. The paralyzed lion responded, a huffing noise from deep in his chest. Recognition. "They know each other," Sarah said. The three approached slowly. The hyenas backed away not from fear, but from confusion. Injured lions didn't usually group together. The burnt-faced lion sniffed at the dead lioness twice, then at the paralyzed male. Its rough tongue cleaned blood from his neck wound. The rangers lowered their rifles slightly. The lead ranger checked his watch. 28 minutes. Mark stood. He has a coalition. They came for him. He still needs to stand. 16 a.m. 17 minutes until the sunrise. The lion with the curved spine lay down beside the paralyzed male, pressing against his uninjured side. The one with the dragged leg positioned itself on the other side. Together, they formed supports. The paralyzed lion understood. He pushed with his right legs, using their bodies as braces. His left front leg found purchase. The left rear, the weakest, trembled but held. He stood between them, shaking, swaying, but standing. 10 seconds, 20, 25. His left rear leg spasmed. He started to fall. The burnt-faced lion pressed against him, taking his weight, not helping him stand but preventing him from falling. 30 seconds, 35, 40. The ranger safetied his rifle. That counts. The lion collapsed. His breathing came in gasps. Fresh blood soaked through the bandages, but his eye remained alert, tracking movement. Sarah moved in with supplies. "He's torn sutures. I need to—" The three lions closed ranks around him, teeth bared, or not. The sun broke the horizon. Orange light flooded across the Serengeti, turning the grass gold, the blood black, making everyone squint after hours of artificial light. Mark's phone buzzed. The audio file icon blinked on his screen. 12 hours of his son dying. He turned the phone off. "We can't leave him here," Sarah said. "He needs weeks of treatment, antibiotics, physical therapy." "I'll stay," Mark said. Everyone looked at him. "I'll set up camp, document his recovery, pay for the supplies." "That's insane." "Probably." Day 3, the lion. Mark had started thinking of him as three legs, though he never said it aloud, managed to stand for 5 minutes. His coalition stayed close, the burnt-faced lion bringing a half-eaten gazelle haunch. Three legs couldn't eat solid food yet. Sarah had to puree meat in a camp blender powered by Mark's generator, feed him through a syringe. The hyenas maintained their vigil at the camp's perimeter. Day 7. The infection flared. Three legs' temperature spiked to 105. Sarah drove 2 hours to Serenera for stronger antibiotics. While she was gone, the lion started convulsing. Mark held his head, kept him from biting his tongue. The burnt-faced lion watched from 2 feet away, making a low, keening sound. The seizure lasted 3 minutes, but so three legs survived. Barely. Day 10. First real movement in the left rear leg, not just reflexes, but intentional motion. Three legs dragged himself 6 feet to reach shade. Mark filmed it all. Though he'd stopped sending footage to his editor, Benjamin's grandfather visited daily, bringing new bark mixtures, herbs Mark couldn't identify. Sarah had stopped protesting. Whatever worked. That night, Mark opened the audio file, hit play, heard wind, stopped it immediately. Day, three legs took his first real steps, 4 wobbling, uncoordinated movements before collapsing. The other lions flanked him, ready to catch him if needed. Sarah had returned to her regular duties but came by daily. "He's healing faster than should be possible," she said. "I don't understand it." Mark did. He'd seen the same impossible recovery drive in Tommy's medical records. The body fighting past all reasonable limits. Sometimes it worked, Sometimes it didn't. Day 18, the wound had closed enough to remove the bandages. The scar was massive, a twisted rope of tissue that would never grow fur. Three Legs could walk the length of the camp before resting. His left side remained weak, would probably always be weak. Mark played 10 seconds of the audio file, heard Tommy's voice. "Dad, if you get this." Stopped it, day 21. 6:47 a.m. Cool morning for the Serengeti. Maybe 70 degrees. Three Legs stood without help. Walked out to the camp's edge where Mark had buried the lioness 3 weeks ago. The grave was marked with stones, though Mark knew that was absurd sentimentality. The lion stood over the stones, made a sound that wasn't quite a roar, lower, private. Then he walked away from camp, not dragging, not falling, walking. His gait was wrong, left rear leg stepping short, spine slightly twisted to compensate. But walking. The coalition followed. The burnt-faced lion looked back once at Mark, then continued. Mark followed with his camera. 4 damaged lions, moving through golden grass. They walked 200 meters before Three Legs had to rest, but he rested standing that night, alone in his tent. Mark played the entire audio file, Tommy's voice, young and scared. "Dad, if you get this, I want you to know I'm not afraid. That's a lie. I'm terrified, but I'm also... it's beautiful up here. I can see forever. My legs don't hurt anymore. Can't feel them at all, actually. That's probably bad." Hours of wind, occasional words, Tommy talking to keep himself conscious. "Remember when we went fishing at Jackson Lake? You said the point wasn't catching fish, it was being present. I never understood that. I do now." More wind, Tommy's breathing getting shallower. "I'm sorry I didn't call more." "Sorry, I said your work didn't matter. It does. Showing people things they'd never see otherwise, that matters." The last hour was mostly silence. Then it's very quiet. "I love you, Dad. I hope you know that. I hope you're not watching this. But if you are, let me go. It's okay. The sun's coming up. It's beautiful. Everything's gold." The recording ended. Mark cried for the first time in 3 years. Week 8, Mark packed his equipment. The lions had established a territory 3 miles north. Camera trap footage showed them hunting small prey, working together, surviving. Three Legs would never run properly, would never lead a pride. But he lived. Sarah drove Mark to the airstrip. "You did something extraordinary." "I postponed the inevitable. That's all any of us do." At security. She handed him a flash drive. "Footage I took might help with your documentary." Mark took it but said, "I'm not making a documentary about this." "Why not?" He thought about it. "Because some stories aren't mine to tell." Jackson, Wyoming. Mark stood at Tommy's grave. Snow covered everything, made it clean and simple. He'd brought Tommy's phone, the one with 12 hours of death recorded. He buried it beside the headstone. "I listened," he said to the stone. "I heard you." He drove to the storage unit where he'd put all of Tommy's things, climbing gear, photographs, clothes that still smelled faintly of his son. Mark had thought he was preserving memories. He'd been preserving pain. He took one photo Tommy at summit of Grand Teton, grinning, arms raised, left the rest for donation. His phone rang. Sarah calling from Tanzania. "Thought you should know. Three Legs killed a warthog yesterday, by himself." Mark smiled. First time in weeks. Good for him. The paralysis might return. The infection could come back. He probably has 2 years, maximum. 2 years more than he had. Silence. Then Sarah said, "Are you okay?" Mark looked at the photo of Tommy. his son frozen in a moment of pure joy. "I'm walking." He hung up, drove home, opened his laptop to find 47 emails from his editor about the lion odd footage. Mark deleted them all. Instead, he opened a new document, typed for Tommy. Then he began writing the story, not about the lion, not about Africa, about a father who learned to let go by watching something broken refuse to give up, about the difference between saving something and allowing it to save itself. Outside his window, snow began to fall. In Tanzania, 3 damaged lions and 1 healing lion moved through tall grass. Somewhere between those 2 points, in the space between holding on and letting go, Mark found what he'd been looking for without knowing he'd been looking: the ability to continue. I need to tell you something. When I first received Mark's footage from the Serengeti, I thought it was just another wildlife rescue story. But watching that lion drag himself toward his dead protector, seeing Mark's hands shake as he held the camera, I understood. We don't save others to be heroes. We save them because in their broken bodies, we see our own fractured souls. Mark couldn't reach Tommy on that mountain, couldn't hold his son as he died, but he could hold that lion. Sometimes redemption comes in forms we don't expect: a paralyzed predator, a grieving filmmaker, 3 damaged lions forming an unlikely coalition. Mark sent me one final message. The lion lived 14 more months. Not a long time, but time enough. Time enough to hunt again. Time enough to matter. Maybe that's all any of us get, time enough. This story was inspired by wildlife conservation efforts in Tanzania, created solely for entertainment purposes. It does not condone, encourage, or promote any form of violence or harmful behavior toward animals or humans. All characters and events are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. The medical procedures described are fictional and should not be attempted. Swiss.